The serenity of a summer morning in Southall Park shattered forever on July 17, 2021. As dawn's first light painted the London sky in gentle watercolors, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere across the grounds, a local resident's routine morning walk transformed into a moment that would haunt him for years to come. Through the morning mist, he spotted what appeared to be a sleeping figure on a park bench, motionless against the awakening day. Something in his gut told him this wasn't the typical sight of someone who had dozed off after a long night. Each step closer confirmed his growing dread, until the horrifying reality became clear. The woman wasn't breathing. Her skin held the unmistakable pallor of death. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, where we uncover the darkest chapters of human nature, bringing to light stories that deserve to be told. If you appreciate our dedication to sharing these important narratives, please support our channel by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications. Your engagement helps us continue our mission of bringing awareness to these crucial cases. The discovery that morning would launch an investigation into one of London's most disturbing cases, revealing a predator who had been hiding in plain sight, and a tragedy that would shake an entire community to its core. The victim was Natalie Schott, a 37-year-old mother of three whose life was dedicated to helping others through her work with the National Health Service. Those who knew her spoke of a woman whose warmth and compassion touched countless lives, whose dedication to her children was unwavering, and whose commitment to charitable causes made her a pillar of her community. But the circumstances surrounding her death would uncover a darkness that lurked beneath the surface of this peaceful park, a predator whose actions would reveal depths of depravity that shocked even seasoned investigators. The events of that July night would expose not just a brutal crime, but systemic failures that allowed a dangerous individual to remain free to hunt for victims. The investigation would reveal that Natalie's final hours began on July 16th, a night that started with the simple pleasure of spending time with friends. No one could have predicted that these would be her last moments of joy. The timeline of events leading to her death would slowly emerge, piece by devastating piece, painting a picture more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Enter Muhammad Lyle, a 35-year-old man whose presence in Southall Park that night was anything but coincidental. Despite being homeless, Lyle moved through the park's winding paths with calculated precision, his movements captured by the park's network of CCTV cameras. Each frame would later reveal the methodical nature of his actions, the purposeful way he patrolled the grounds, like a predator studying its territory. The man's history painted a disturbing portrait. Court records would reveal a pattern of sexual offenses, particularly involving his attempts to groom young people online. Digital evidence uncovered conversations that chilled investigators to their core, where Lyle openly expressed his darkest fantasies, including disturbing comments about deriving pleasure from acts of sexual violence. This wasn't someone acting on impulse, but rather a calculated predator who had been waiting for an opportunity. As midnight approached on that fateful night, the park had emptied of its usual visitors. The security footage showed Lyle's persistent presence, his figure moving through the shadows with unsettling purpose. When he first spotted Natalie on the bench, unconscious and vulnerable, the cameras captured his initial hesitation, followed by a series of calculated moves that would culminate in unthinkable violence. The CCTV footage, later presented as crucial evidence, documented Lyle's methodical approach. He circled the area multiple times, conducting what investigators would later describe as surveillance, ensuring no witnesses were present. His movements became more deliberate as he confirmed his isolation with Natalie, checking repeatedly over his shoulder, scanning the perimeter with practiced precision. What followed was 15 minutes of horror captured by the park's cameras. Lyle approached Natalie's unconscious form, carefully manipulating her unresponsive body. The footage showed him pause periodically, assessing his surroundings before continuing his assault. Each moment was calculated, each action deliberate, as he committed acts of sexual violence against a woman who couldn't defend herself. The medical examination would later reveal the brutal truth: Natalie was alive when Lyle began his attack. His actions triggered a fatal response in her body, as the assault stimulated nerves in her throat, leading to a cardiac arrest. In her vulnerable state, she had no chance to fight back, no opportunity to call for help. Perhaps most chilling was Lyle's behavior after the assault. There was no panic, no rushed escape from the scene. Instead, he calmly adjusted his clothing and walked away from Natalie's lifeless body with disturbing composure. His next actions would later shock investigators and the public alike. He drove to a nearby Shell gas station, purchasing cat food and mouthwash, as if completing routine errands. This mundane act, captured on the station's security cameras, demonstrated a level of callousness that would later become crucial evidence of his state of mind. Through the dark hours that followed, Natalie's body remained on that park bench, alone and exposed to the elements. The peaceful park setting had become a crime scene, though it would be hours before anyone would make the devastating discovery. The morning light that should have brought warmth instead revealed the stark horror of what had transpired during those nighttime hours. The discovery of Natalie's body triggered an immediate response from emergency services, though their swift arrival could do nothing to alter the tragic outcome. The scene quickly transformed as police cordoned off the area, and forensic investigators began their meticulous work. Every inch of the bench and surrounding area was examined, photographed, and documented. Swabs were taken for DNA analysis, and evidence was carefully collected, each piece potentially holding crucial information about the perpetrator. The forensic team's thoroughness would prove invaluable. DNA evidence collected from Natalie's body would provide an undeniable link to Mohamed Lyle, whose profile was already in the system due to his previous offenses. This scientific evidence, combined with the comprehensive CCTV footage, would begin to build an irrefutable case against him. The impact of Natalie's death rippled through her community, particularly affecting those who knew her through her work with the NHS. Colleagues spoke of her dedication to helping others, her unwavering commitment to her patients, and the void her absence left in their lives. But nowhere was the loss felt more deeply than within her family, especially by her children who had lost a devoted mother, and her mother, Dr. Cass Shot-Wheatman, a respected NHS cardiologist who had dedicated her life to saving others but couldn't save her own daughter. The trial of Mohamed Lyle began at London's Old Bailey in October 2024, more than 3 years after Natalie's death. The historic courtroom, which had witnessed countless criminal proceedings throughout its long history, fell into a heavy silence as the prosecution presented their case. The gallery was filled to capacity. Journalists, members of the public, and most poignantly, Natalie's family, all gathered to witness justice being pursued. Lead prosecutor Alison Morgan's opening statement cut through the tension with surgical precision. She painted a vivid picture of that July night, describing Lyle not as a desperate homeless man, but as a calculating predator who had turned Southall Park into his hunting ground. The prosecution's most damning evidence came in the form of the CCTV footage, which was played in the hushed courtroom. As the security footage rolled, its grainy images projected onto the courtroom screens, several jurors visibly recoiled. The footage showed, in excruciating detail, Lyle's methodical approach to his unconscious victim. The prosecution emphasized a crucial point: Natalie had been alive, though unconscious, when Lyle began his attack. His actions, they argued, had directly led to her death through the overstimulation of vital nerves in her throat, triggering the fatal cardiac arrest. The defense attempted to construct an alternative narrative. They suggested that Natalie might have already been deceased when Lyle encountered her, pointing to her earlier consumption of alcohol and amyl nitrate, poppers. However, this theory crumbled under the weight of toxicology reports, which confirmed that while these substances were present in her system, they weren't at levels sufficient to cause death. The defense then pivoted to an even more disturbing claim that the encounter had been consensual, suggesting Natalie had offered sexual favors in exchange for money. This assertion was swiftly dismantled by the CCTV evidence, which clearly showed Natalie's complete unconsciousness throughout the assault. Throughout the proceedings, Dr. Cass Shot-Wheatman maintained a stoic presence in the courtroom, though those sitting nearby could often see her hands trembling as she listened to the detailed account of her daughter's final moments. The seasoned cardiologist, who had spent decades saving lives in the NHS, now had to endure hearing the clinical details of how her own daughter's life had been so brutally ended. The prosecution's case was further strengthened by the damning DNA evidence recovered from Natalie's body, which provided an irrefutable link to Lyle. When combined with the CCTV footage documenting his calculated movements through the park, and his calm demeanor afterward at the gas station, it painted a picture of a predator who had acted with chilling deliberation. But beyond the courtroom proceedings, another powerful narrative was unfolding: the relentless pursuit of justice led by Dr. Cass Wheatman. For 3 grueling years, this respected NHS cardiologist had transformed her grief into a formidable force for change. Her 45-year career saving lives had given her an intimate understanding of how precious life was, making her daughter's senseless death all the more devastating. Dr. Wheatman's fight began even before the trial, when she challenged what she termed a culture of indifference and misogyny within the system. She revealed a shocking detail: earlier on the night of Natalie's death, a friend had reported concerns about her welfare to 2 police officers. Their response had been dismissive, stating nothing could be done. This callous response, Dr. Wheatman would later argue, may have cost her daughter her life. Her advocacy extended beyond her daughter's case. She became a vocal champion for better protection of vulnerable women in public spaces, pushing for enhanced police training, improved park security measures, and stricter accountability in handling cases of violence against women. The community rallied behind her cause, holding vigils for Natalie and transforming the park bench where she was found into a memorial site, covered with flowers and messages of remembrance. Throughout the trial, Dr. Wheatman's presence served as a constant reminder of the human cost of this tragedy. She sat through each devastating revelation, each piece of evidence, bearing witness to the full extent of her daughter's suffering while holding on to hope that justice would prevail. Her strength inspired many, turning her personal tragedy into a catalyst for broader social change. The trial reached its climax as the jury prepared to deliver their verdict. The courtroom fell into a profound silence, the air heavy with anticipation. For Natalie's family, this moment represented the culmination of years of pain, persistence, and unwavering determination to see justice served. The tension in the courtroom reached its peak on December 13th, as the jury returned with their verdict. Mohammed Lyo sat motionless in the dock as the judge's voice rang out through the hushed chamber, declaring him guilty of both manslaughter and rape. Unlike the emotional responses that often follow such verdicts, Lyo remained eerily expressionless, staring straight ahead as if the proceedings held no significance for him. The judge's commentary was unsparing in its condemnation. He characterized Lyo's actions as not just predatory and heinous, but as a fundamental betrayal of human dignity. The judge emphasized how Lyo had exploited Natalie's vulnerability in the most horrific way imaginable, leaving her to die alone in the darkness after inflicting unimaginable suffering. For Dr. Wheatman and her family, the verdict brought a complex mixture of emotions: relief that justice had been served, yet an acute awareness that no court decision could ever fill the void left by Natalie's absence. Outside the courthouse, Dr. Wheatman addressed the waiting press with remarkable composure, despite the tears in her eyes. She spoke not just of justice being served, but of her daughter's legacy: a kind and loving person whose life had been dedicated to helping others through her work with the NHS. Dr. Wheatman's words that day reached beyond the immediate case, touching on broader issues of public safety and institutional responsibility. Her voice, steady despite her grief, carried the weight of both personal loss and public advocacy. She expressed hope that her daughter's case would serve as a catalyst for meaningful change, ensuring better protection for women and more severe consequences for those who would prey upon the vulnerable. This case serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk in seemingly safe spaces, and the vital importance of remaining vigilant in protecting society's most vulnerable members. Natalie's story has become more than a tragic headline. It has evolved into a powerful call for change, a demand for better systems of protection, and a reminder of the devastating impact of predatory behavior. As we conclude this narrative, we ask you, our viewers, what changes do you believe are necessary to prevent similar tragedies? How can communities better protect their vulnerable members? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you value these important stories being told, please support our channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with others who should hear this story. Remember, Every like and subscription helps us continue our mission of bringing awareness to these crucial cases, ensuring that voices like Natalie's are never silenced. Thank you for joining us for this episode of True Crime Stories Archive, where we remain committed to uncovering the truth and seeking justice through storytelling.